Well, Om, we'd like to welcome you to Tayu Meditation Center.
We're happy to have this third conversation that we've had with you, much better in person. And so I'm glad you could come back to America after several decades, as we hear, and start off here with us. So thank you.
I think in our last conversation we had talked about the importance of bringing everything that we have to the work, and that includes our bodies. And so having you physically here and embodied with our bodies is yet a elaboration of the connection that we made over Zoom. And we appreciate that because there's a distinction of the truth of the body that is so vitally important in spiritual work that sometimes we see gets effaced or elided in some people's enthusiasm for the ideas of the work. So I'm interested in how you see the role of the body and embodiment as an expression of the work that we do.
Well, I mean, you know, in Western culture, we have a very strong body-mind duality, which goes back to, I mean, thousands of years. And of course, our own spiritual Christian tradition was unable to re-merge this separation. It's a very strong general separation, which is not linked to certain personalities or people. It's a collective obstacle. So this is where we come from, you know. So it was quite the contrary that the Christian tradition has served for at least 2,000 years now, has served this separation. So the duality has not, during the last 2,000 years, has not taken a new approach of coming together, but it's floating. How do you say this? The distance has become bigger over the time, and now, of course, the society is complex. We're having different streams at the same time. We're having this strong superficial worshipping of physical existence, especially also here in the States, you know. Term Ken Wilber called this bodyism. A good term, as I think. And on the other hand, this is not the healing of this duality, you know. It's just a counter movement. But the basic movement is still the what I call the uncoupling of the mental world. Can you say that? Uncoupling?
Yes, yeah.
Now we're facing the digital time, and the digitalization is definitely, for the masses, extremely serving this separation. And there we come back to, you know, your example, you know, that many people then nowadays have the illusion that a digital meeting with wisdom teachers or with the teaching itself would be quite sufficient, and so they sit in their comfortably sit in their back room having a cup of tea and eating a biscuit while listening to a darshan, you know. So why move physically, you know?
Right.
Why get into this trouble to move anywhere, you know.
Well, there's an aspect of that is a relational thing to the teaching, which gets to this question of bringing everything you have to the work. And I observe that it may be a stage for people, it may be a comfortable place for people to hang out, but many people want to meet the teaching on their terms as opposed to on its terms. So as you say, to sit comfortably in your apartment.
What do you mean by on their terms? You mean by their own will?
Their personality terms.
Yeah. So for instance, going to a darshan is a good thing if it works with my schedule, or if it's convenient for all the other things that I have arranged in my life, so that the teaching becomes another element that one is managing, as opposed to something that one surrenders entirely to.
Yeah, this is the idea that the teaching or darshan or the teacher has to be integrated in my life, rather than my life has to be integrated in darshan. You know, it's quite vice versa. It's
So I have a question in a slightly different direction. There's a painting up that you're facing, this large painting on the wall here. And it was painted by a student of the teacher E.J. Gold, who was our own teacher's teacher. And the title of the painting is The Suffering of the Absolute and the Alleviation of the Suffering of the Absolute, or the relief of the suffering of the Absolute.
The relief of the suffering of the Absolute.
Yeah, and so the question I have, because this is something that comes up in the Gurdjieff material and it comes up in E.J. Gold's work, does the Absolute suffer?
Well, the Absolute does not suffer, you know. First of all, of course, we have to maybe look a little bit more profound in the concept of suffering. By the way, I mean, this is one of the pillars of what I call the pillars of the inner path, and well, maybe there's one chapter under this title, suffering. What is suffering, you know? Suffering in the Advaitic understanding, which is the most profound. Suffering in this view is a dualistic concept. If you saw an enlightened person, you know, you have this person, let's make a very rude example, you know, would be tortured physically, you know, then of course it would not be, you know, enlightened joy, but the pain of the physical would be present. Of course, I mean, if you do very brutal things to even also, well, I mean, let's talk about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. So, did Jesus Christ suffer in the moment of the crucifixion? This is an interesting question, you see. So, the Advaitic understanding would say, no, he did not suffer in the moment of crucifixion of the body, you know, because the body was crucified, and definitely the process of dying on the cross is not a comfortable happening. It's a very painful happening for the body. But, you know, if to understand suffering, what suffering really means in the metaphysical sense, then we say, you know, there has to be an I that makes a relation to pain. So if there is just pain, you know, a normal person doesn't understand this because this person is constantly in relation with pain. You see, he doesn't know what it. If I try to talk to this person or this student and tell him, look, disidentify with the pain, then what happens is that person will dissociate and make a big distance to this pain, and this dissociation is the next trauma, you know. Dissociation is not disidentification. So, but if really the identification with pain, if this entity called I and me is not related to pain, then it means that the concept of suffering is dying, you see. There is still pain, but it's not suffering. So we have to be much more precise, you know, to say what is pain and what is suffering. It's not the same. But for most people, for normal people, it's more or less the same, you know. Okay. They have pain, it's suffering. I have joy, it's not suffering, you know. Or I feel comfortable, right. It's not suffering, you know.
So that understanding, in fact, as you just expressed it, accounts for how joy, as most people would identify it, is not the opposite of pain. But I think that's how people usually understand it. Because
joy is not, joy is not the opposite of suffering.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It might be the opposite of pain, yes, but it's not the opposite of suffering, definitely not. No.
Right, okay. So that I get. And that's a clear exposition that I think is one of the things, my understanding at least, that spiritual practice is about, is clarifying that relationship.
To realize what suffering is. I mean, in the four Buddha truths, this is named very clearly what suffering is, you know. I mean, the world is suffering. But who understands that, you know? As I say, it's a very important pillar of the process of awakening to realize what suffering really is. It has nothing to do with any kind of behavior. It has nothing to do with certain states of mind. They may be joyful, they may be painful. It has nothing to do with all of that. This is just the understanding of the simple man, you know.
And that's the point I was making, is precisely that one that you've articulated, which is that people think that when they're identifying the state that they're in as happiness or joy, that they're free of suffering. And the point you're saying and making is that is not the case.
Well, it is relatively the case. You know? I mean, if you go to
relative and absolute.
Yeah, if you, I mean, as you know, I mean, the ordinary person tries to arrange life within certain realities that avoid suffering. That he tries to arrange what he calls his life in a way that he doesn't touch deeper suffering, you know. We call it comfort zones or this kind of thing, you know. Well, what was I going to say?
I don't know, but I can supply something, which is
yeah, I'll supply something.
Intentional suffering is an idea in the fourth way. That
intentional suffering.
Intentional suffering is a practice that Gurdjieff advocated to his students. And
I think this concept is what I call conscious suffering.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And conscious suffering is the concept that I use. I guess it's
I think it's the same.
I think it's probably the same, but please articulate it clearly for the audience.
Well, the conscious suffering, the moment of conscious suffering, is what I relate to the profound Christian symbol of the crucifixion of Christ.
Okay.
So this is the moment of conscious suffering. And the moment of conscious suffering, if the person reaches this moment, this is actually the beginning of the transformation. Because transformation can only happen through conscious suffering. Conscious suffering is the moment when this dualistic reality, meaning me and the suffering, but me and suffering is not completely unified. You know, it's I have suffering. Mm-hmm. The person would say I am suffering, but the truth is, this is a false language. You know, what he really means is that I have suffering, not I am suffering. Mm-hmm. So because the self-inquiry would confirm that suffering and me is not completely merged. So the conscious suffering is the moment of unification, the conscious union with the total suffering. And the suffering, it could be the suffering of the world, it could be the suffering of you know, whatever. It's the suffering of duality, you know. So this moment is very, very important, because, as I say, it's the moment in which the true transformation into happiness, not the happiness with the mind, the ordinary mind related to, but the happiness of being can only be born from conscious suffering.
So conscious suffering is a choice.
Yeah, I mean it's a choice of an earnest person, you mm-hmm. know, mm-hmm. that doesn't give his life to the easy solutions. You know, I mean, most people live easy solutions, easy healing solutions. I mean, the most profound, the transformative healing is the most difficult process. I usually give examples from, I mean, very simple examples from healing processes in different levels. I mean, I myself was trained as a health practitioner. I think this doesn't exist in the States. It's a kind of natural doctor, not a real doctor. It's just, you know, we have
naturopaths here.
Yeah, but it's still different.
It's still different.
It's
okay.
still different. But it's more than an American naturopath, I think. Okay. Anyway, I mean, I'm just saying that in one time I also dealt with physical healing processes. But it's interesting to really get the hierarchy of healing processes, not physically, but in the great circle, physically, emotionally, and mentally, you know. And this transformative healing process is not the process that gives you easy solutions or easy quick healing. You know, this is what people want. This whole concept of school medicine lives from this fast healing. You know, you just take a pill and that's it. And I mean, there can nothing be faster than that. You know, why is it so attractive to people? You know, because it's so fast. It's so give me something that I don't feel this pain. Just give me something, you know. And in 5 minutes, in 1 minute, it's gone. I mean, this is great. This is fantastic. You know, I mean, this is just a quick serve. You know. But I mean, really, if you get the instruction to dive into that and quit every substitutional move, you know, and really dive into that pain, into the middle of it, into the and then dive through the layers and reach the original pain. I mean, this is where you can reach, where the pain can open, you know, completely. The pain of separation, the original sin, you know, fall out of paradise.
Thank you. I'm thinking of your book, Birth of the Lion, and your description of your own process much earlier in your life. And I'm wondering to what extent that set of experiences, that set of intentions realized, informs your work with other people today.
What do you mean exactly?
To inform means to be a foundation for.
Well, the highest state is that no one works with people. Therapy without therapists is the highest path, you know, for working with people. I mean, when I teach people, of course, in a relative way at the beginning, but to get out of the way, meaning that the therapist, if the therapist even has an intention to heal, you know, his patient, it's a problem.
It's the same separation.
Yeah, it's creating
the same separation, you know. So as long as I have an interest to heal this person, it's still not the highest coming together. Every mind would understand it this way, you know. But this is again referring to what I said at the beginning, you know, the path of emptying, of depletion, of complete emptiness. So then something will happen, you know, a healing process is happening. It's not that there is an intention, or that there is, as I said, that there is not no bodhisattva vow that you have to do something for other people. It's just happening, you know. I mean, Ramana Maharshi, and this is something I refer to often as a big example. Ramana Maharshi is one of the highest saints that have ever lived, definitely, you know. And yeah, then he was, I have to smile about this term, you know, was criticized by some Western, for example, psychotherapists or Western teachers, that he just, I mean, what did he do for humanity, you know? I mean, what can you do? You're just sitting around in your cove and not doing anything, you know? You're not doing anything for humanity. I mean, there has so much, and nowadays the whole world is suffering, the earth is suffering. I mean, we have to, you know, get action, you know? I mean, this is of course, this is the relatively naive idea of a moralistic mind, but not getting the complete anarchy of how things happen beyond mind. You know, they don't happen in the way mind does understand. So I think it could end tomorrow, you know. I mean, it could all end tomorrow, no more teaching, no more nothing, and could also go for another 10, 20 years or 30 years, I don't know, you know. It's not that there is no calculation about this.
So then is I'm going to use a term which may or not, is certainly not the best one, but I can't think of a better one at the moment. The unseen world, where Ramana Maharshi was connected to all those people whether they came to visit him or whether they did not?
Well, the guru and the guru principle is definitely working through this form of the Sadguru, as long as this form is alive, no matter what is done or not done. And the teaching beyond words is superior to teachings in words. This is one of Ramana's statements.
Right.
Which doesn't mean that words, that they have their path, and it also relates to. But this gets us to another big thing. In one of my last books, I was talking about the 3 different kinds of gurus on earth. This has not been translated in English, this book. And most Eastern teachers have a different type, a different type of the guru principle compared to Western teachers. So it's not different in essence, but it has a different connotation. It has a different atmosphere. It's a different emphasis.
My teacher told me that he once met a master who was, I don't know if masquerading is the right word, but he was a street person.
Mm.
And he had a deep understanding and a profound understanding. And so I completely credit this view, this perspective, that people's outer lives and inner lives do not have a one-to-one relationship in a sense.
No, they don't. And I think this is a good final for our talk, because we have to get back, I think. In this book I just mentioned, which has not been translated in English yet, called Spiritual Mastership. There I am relating to the question, how does spirituality look like? How does it look like? How can you see, is this person spiritual or is it not? And then if you give this question to students, the mind will start, how could it look like? Okay, maybe this person would meditate half an hour a day or an hour, and then maybe you would find incense in the rooms, and you would find some devotional objects or anything. And then the deeper you dive into this question, the more it becomes clear that spirituality doesn't look at all. It doesn't look like anything. It doesn't have an appearance. It doesn't have an appearance that can be conceptualized. So therefore, an enlightened person doesn't have a specific aura. It doesn't have specific tasks. It doesn't look in a certain way. This is all these are naive concepts of people. If they want a holy person, they can go to a holy, but an enlightened person is not necessarily the holy. It can be different. So the final answer was, just to complete this, the answer was, spirituality doesn't look like anything.
A good note to
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate it, and I appreciate the energy that you brought to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can bring in everything, and what is everything is welcome. I mean, tonight if I talk about, or in Darshan also, I just quote some passages from the book, but then we can talk about anything, you know.
Great.